حرية.
يريدوننا تابعين بلا هوية بلا جذور بلا كرامة، لكننا هنا في ساحة الكرامة نعلنها. لن نترك التوحيد، لن ننسى.
وتعبير عن انه نحن جماعة بالمقر الغربي طول عمرنا كنا البوابة لحماية الجبل.
للأسف بال 2025 نكتشف انه هالوطن غدرنا، هالوطن بدل ما يكون معنا كان علينا.
نحن موجوعين ومحروق قلبنا كثير ومجروحين. نحن انجرحنا جرح كبير وجرحنا بعده نازف وما له ضماد. جرحنا ما له ضماد لحتى يطلعوا المخطوفات والمخطوفين وترجع ديارنا ويرجع الحق، يرجع لنا الحق. حقنا نحن عم نطلب يا عالم، يا عالم، يا عالم، يا كل العالم وكل الراقي. بدنا نطلب من عدالة من الراقين، من العالم، من الحضارة. بدنا نطلب يعدلوا ويساعدونا يرجعوا دورنا، ترجع بيوتنا. 36 قرية تدمرت. نحن رح نكون فوق الدمار. نحن رح نعيش، أولادنا رح يعيشوا غصب عنهم. نحن منفدي برواحنا وبدمنا أرضنا وعرضنا.
مجددا في ساحة الكرامة لتجديد مطالبنا بحق تقرير المصير، بعودة المختطفين والمختطفات، وفتح معبر إنساني. نحن اليوم بوضع إنساني يرثى له. اقترب فصل الشتاء وجميع الأهالي منتشرين في مراكز الإيواء، ولا أحد يهتم بهم. فاليوم بحاجة إلى اهتمام من كل الفعاليات الاجتماعية في المحافظة ومن المنظمات الإنسانية بخارج سوريا. يحتاجون إلى وسائل تدفئة ويحتاجون إلى بطانيات ويحتاجون إلى حتى المدارس إلى اليوم لم تستأنف العمل بها والطلاب يذهبون إليها بسبب وجود هذه العائلات في المدارس. نطالب المجتمع الدولي بأن يقف أمام استحقاقاته وأن يلبي مطالب الشعب في السويداء.
شحاذي على كتاب العالم ودم العالم. نحن بنقولكم، نحن دفعنا دم.
سيطاردون في كل مكان. عشتم وعاشت السويداء حرة مستقلة.
القضائية العليا واللجان المنبثقة عنها والحرس الوطني. هدفنا واضح، دولة حرة قوية.
Very unfortunate to see the Israeli and American flags in Sweden, despite the legitimate demands of the people to be treated with respect and dignity. My hope and my message, if there is anyone listening in Sweden, if there is anyone who still believes in coexistence between different factions in the Syrian society, which was a possibility were it not for the Al-Julani regime. If there is anyone with conscious and understanding of who really stands behind the regime change in Syria and who brought Al-Julani to power and why they got him into power, they would understand that they are carrying the flags of the countries which enabled the massacres against the Druze community in Sweden. I'm very sad to see that. Anyways, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for joining me, whether you're watching this stream on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Ganjing Word. Today's live stream dives into one of the most surreal chapters in Syria's modern history. Abu Muhammad al-Julani, the former al-Qaeda commander and the deputy leader of ISIS, once branded a terrorist by the West, now calls himself the president of Syria, ruling over a fragmented nation through fear, manipulation, and foreign support. But his so-called new Syria is now collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. Let's start with a stunning revelation from the Israeli newspaper, Israel Yahom, which published an article this week titled, quote, "Thank you, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, you achieved the impossible," quote ended. Maybe one of the impossibles is what we have seen in this video of people carrying an Israeli flag in Asweda. But there are other things which I will address today. According to this report, Julani's massacres in Sweda last July have sparked a historic backlash, not only in Syria, but also in the occupied Golan Heights. The atrocities of the Julani regime committed by the thugs reportedly led to a 600% surge in Druze enlistment in the Israeli army, and record numbers applying for Israeli citizenship. In other words, Julani's campaign of terror didn't just devastate Syria, it directly advanced Israel's long-term goals in the Golan. Meanwhile, a viral TikTok video shows Zionist Jewish visitors, walking freely through Damascus, taking selfies in the Syrian capital as if the country's sovereignty has become a tourist attraction. And inside Syria itself, Julani's rule grows darker by the day, my friends. Religious and ethnic minorities are being persecuted, women kidnapped, activists disappeared, and entire communities terrorized into silence. But even more ironic, and perhaps more revealing, is Julani's new campaign against the foreign militants who once helped him to seize power. Julani's forces have begun rounding up and targeting French jihadists and other foreign fighters who were imported during the so-called Syrian revolution, many of them with silent Western approval at the time. Now, these same foreign extremists are being detained, and Julani is trying to deport them or execute them by the very man they once served. So tonight we ask important questions, and I hope I would be able to answer to you during this stream. Has Julani become the West's new dictator in Syria? Why is Israel suddenly praising him, or why the Israeli press is thanking Abu Muhammad al-Julani? And how does Julani's war against the very militants, the foreign legions, the West helped send, expose the cynical logic of modern empire? My friends, make no mistake, this is no longer a war for democracy, as they still claim in the Julani's press and the Julani's minions. It's a war for control, resources, and silence. I would like to start today's episode with the report. If you remember, Abu Muhammad al-Julani flew to Paris, I think this was 2-3 months ago, and once landed and talked to Emmanuel Macron. The latter apparently asked him to deport the French militants, the Takfiri terrorists, who came 14 years ago to Syria to fight against the Syrian Arab Army and the Syrian National Army, and they were welcomed and embraced by the Syrian revolutionaries, first in the Free Syrian Army, then in al-Nusra Front and in ISIS. And these foreign legions, whether from France, whether from Germany, Belgium, the UK, the Central Asian countries, Arabic countries, Islamic countries, etc., they have been a very strong striking force in the past 14 years to the extent that they were used in suicide missions, they were used in very complicated tactical missions against the Syrian army. And I would call it a Syrian army because the current one is not a Syrian army, it is a Takfiri militia. So the Syrian army, which was finally destroyed and collapsed, thanks, or partly thanks, to these foreign legions who fought alongside Al-Julani, alongside Baghdadi, and alongside the Free Syrian Army, just like they do nowadays in Ukraine. There are foreign legions there, right? Was the same script for 14 years. They have copied it in Ukraine, but they cannot send basically ISIS there. They're sending other far-right radicals to fight alongside the neo-Nazi battalions in Ukraine. And similarly, far-right neo-Nazi type of Islamists were encouraged to go to Syria and fight against the former Assad regime because they saw it as an infidel regime and they wanted to establish an Islamic state, right? So what happened is basically the French president asked Al-Julani to hand over some of these French terrorists as part of efforts to integrate Syria into the so-called international community, or the West, basically. The French immigrants, of course, those who fought alongside Al-Julani, refused to surrender to the French government. They don't want to go back to France. So Al-Julani sent his security team to forcibly arrest the wanted individuals for extradition to France. And all the immigrant jihadists and those who came from all around the world, they joined forces to support the French jihadists. So there is a mini jihadi war ongoing at the current moment in Idlib, thanks to the civilized world. And all these immigrant jihadists mobilized and joined forces to support the French jihadists and refused to hand them over to France, considering it a betrayal, treachery, and a stab in the back. I mean, if I were them, I would have felt the same way. But I will show you a few videos today. This video is basically in Latakia, and this is in December 2024, right? In December 2024, the 8th of December, let's say, the regime change happened, and the French Legion in Idlib, they rolled into Latakia, and they have been celebrating the regime change war. And this is one of the videos I found for this foreign legion. Basically, they were celebrating, and they were talking even in French. So basically, they say they're celebrating freedom. This is what they say, Hurriya. And the second thing, they are championing or showing support for the Free Syrian Army. This is what they say, Allah Muhayyid Jaysh al-Hur in Arabic. Now, of course, these French citizens, French nationals, are probably, as our friend says, they are Algerians, Moroccans, and Tunisians, who are second or third generation migrants in Europe. But as we say in Arabic, the butter of the story is, or the real question that we need to ask, who encouraged them to fly to Syria, and who facilitated their transit from Turkey to Syria, and who paid their salaries for 14 years, right? And why the French government, just like the other governments in Europe, have turned a blind eye to the influx of these multinational takfiris to come to Syria. And also, another important question is who paid the price for it? Have the French people paid the price? Has the French government paid the price, or the Syrian people paid the price? Now that they live under the Al-Julani regime, thanks to the facilitators in the European and Western secret services who allowed and enabled or turned a blind eye to the influx of these terrorists to Syria. Some of them came from Sweden, Denmark, France, the UK, Germany, name it, and from many, many countries, right? So, hilariously, what is happening in the French camp in Idlib is worthy of sharing because they are under now attack by the Al-Julani regime, and this is a video showing the attack of or the bombing of the camp, which belongs to the French Legion.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. حول عم ضربونا ب 23 شهداء يا شباب، شهداء عم ضربوا مسلمين مهاجرين.
He says, what is this, brother? What is this? We are all Muslims. We are Muslim migrants. Why are we being like shot?
ضربونا ب 23. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. وين الإسلام؟ وينهم؟
Where is Islam, they say. Well, my friend, and this is another video, again, for the French camp.
الله أكبر. بال57 حسبنا الله ونعم
الوكيل. They are shouting from the mosques, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil, and they're asking them for, like, why are you shooting us? We're all Muslims here. And they were really shocked. This is another one from the French camp. So, as you see, those are very short videos, unfortunately, because probably of the internet here.
الله المستعان. نلبت بالبيوت. نلبت النار. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
As you see, those are very short videos coming from the French camp, basically, in Idlib. And this is a French jihadi of African descent. He posted a video.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا المهاجر الفرنسي جبريل جابي.
So his name is Jibril Jabi. He says, I'm a French migrant.
وحاليا بلعب كرة قدم في نادي أمية.
He's playing football in the Umayyad football club, probably in Idlib, and fighter at the same time.
22/10.
This video is being recorded on the 22nd of October, so yesterday.
ساعة 12:30. صارت معنا إنه القوة الخاصة الأمنيين بدهم يهجموا علينا.
So he's calling the Al-Julani security forces like Khassis. I think Khassis here means in English, Khassis is like villainous, the despicable forces of the Al-Julani regime, he says.
نحن إخوانكم المهاجرين الذي تركنا أرضنا وأهلنا وكل.
He says, so we are your Muslim brothers. We left our country, our homes, our families.
ورانا مشان نيجي نساعدكم.
We left everything behind to come to Syria to help you.
وقت كنتوا عم تصيحوا أين العالم؟ أين؟
While you were asking for the people, where is the world and where are the people to champion our cause, we left everything behind and came to champion you.
أين العرب؟ أين الشعب؟ أين الأمة الإسلام؟ تمام. ومين رد الجواب؟ نحن.
He says, when you were calling, who responded to you? Us. We came to help you.
المهاجرين.
The migrants.
المهاجرين وتركنا كل شيء ورانا ونسينا حياتنا القديم وجينا على حياة الجديد.
We left everything behind. We've forgotten about our past and we came and we started a new life here.
مشانكم ومشان أول شيء مشان الله وثاني شيء مشانكم.
He says, we did this first for God and secondly for you.
واليوم في مخيمنا في مدينة حارم القوة الخاصة هن على أطراف المخيم وبدهم يهجموا علينا. ومعنا عائلات ومعنا أطفال ومعنا أيتام ومعنا مراء نسوان.
He says, anyways, the Julani's forces are surrounding us or besieging us, and they want to storm into the French camp, and we have women, children, we have orphans here. So he's making some, trying to sound like he's very
نسوان
humanitarian.
كبير بالعمر. يعني بدل ما تركزوا على مين اللي بيسب الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام ومين اللي بيخرب البلد، تركزوا على إخوانكم المجاهدين.
He says, instead of focusing on the people who curse the prophet, this is what he said. I mean, he means probably the minorities, because they believe that the minorities curse the prophet, which is completely incorrect. And secondly, he says, instead of focusing on those who are destroying the country, you're coming after us.
اللي ساعدوكم بالفرح بالحزن.
Us who shared your sadness and happiness.
بالقتل بالضرب بالبكاء بالضحكة. هلا صرتوا قلبتوا علينا.
Anyways, he's trying to make a point that we shared the bread with you, we shared your moments, we shared your happiness, we shared your sadness, we shared all the moments with you, and now you're turning against us. So they feel betrayed, right? But it seems that this is going a little bit out of hand, even for Julani, because now the Uzbekis, the Uzbeki Legion came and they posted this video.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الآن نحن المهاجرين الأوزبك اجتمعنا.
Those are the Uzbek immigrants. They have met basically to show support and solidarity to the French Legion.
لنصرة إخواننا الفرنسيين. يا إخوة المهاجرين لا تخذلوا إخوانكم الفرنسيين. نحن لا نريد قتال مع حكومتنا.
They say we don't want to fight against our government, but we want to defend our French migrants.
الحكومة تريد أن تسلم المهاجرين لحكومة الفرنسيين، لكن نحن ندافع إخواننا بدماءنا. أقول للمهاجرين التركستان، المغرب، التونس، أكراد، الطاجيك، كل المهاجرين العرب في الشام استعجلوا لنصرة إخوانكم. اليوم هجوم إلى المهاجرين الفرنسيين، بكرة يجي لنا ولكم.
It's like a monkey land, you know? It's like a zombie land, a monkey land, worse than a jungle. And those are again foreign legion from the Uzbeks, again posting a video of solidarity as they're trying to defend the French legion.
يا إخوة نحن أمام مخيم فرنسيين، إخواننا الأوزبك مهاجرين. يا إخوة الفزع الفزع، يا إخوة الفزع الفزع، يا إخوتنا الأنصار والمهاجرين، الفزع الفزع يا شباب، الفزع. كلنا ضد الظلم، كلنا ضد الظلم. قصفونا، دمروا الجدار، أرهبوا الأطفال والأزواج. الله أكبر يا شباب، الفزع 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 يا شباب.
So every foreign terrorist in Syria is now afraid that if the Julani regime succeeds in detaining and deporting the foreign fighters in the French Legion, whose turn is going to be next? So these Uzbekis are posting videos basically saying or calling on the Uyghurs, the Uzbeks, the Tajiks, the Tunisians, the Moroccans, the rest of the multinational Takfiris to come and defend the French Legion. My friend says, "Wallah, Kevork, I'm so sorry for your country." Today I wrote an article on Substack, and unfortunately, like I really don't know if I should laugh or cry about what's going on in the country. But stay with me, because I'm unfortunately sometimes laughing as reaction to whatever is going on, because if I start to cry about it, I think I will lose my sanity. So I will try to really keep that for myself. Now that Julani has shown that he is a really good puppet for the powers who brought him to power in the West, Turkey, US, France, etc., and he wants to hand over the fighters who came to support him basically to become the president of Syria. One thing that Julani apparently has done in the past few weeks was the persecution. Before he's coming after these foreign legions, he came after the minorities. And one of the people who paid a very heavy price were the Druze in Sweden, right? So this is an article in Israel Yahom. The title says, "Thank you, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, you achieved the impossible." So the Israeli newspaper, Israel Yahom, revealed a shocking outcome of the July massacres in Sweden. According to this Israeli report, the atrocities committed by the Julani regime have triggered a historic shift among the Druze of the occupied Golan. And those are, I believe, how many Druze lives in Sweden? Let me check just for a quick, because this is important for me also to quantify the number and how number of Druze Syrians in Golan. So we have around 152,000 152,000 Druze live in Israel and the occupied Golan. This is the so we have, okay, in the Golan Heights we have probably, I don't know, 40,000, 50,000. How many Syrians are in the Golan Heights? So the Syrians in the Golan Heights should have been 500,000 people, by the way. I don't know. In a small village amounting to small villages. So the current number in the Golan Heights is around 500,000 people. I don't know what's the percentage of the Syrians. To be honest, I'm not able to find. In any ways, the people who live, the Syrian Druze who lived in the Golan Heights, they were, for the most part, very attached to their homeland, Syria, and many of them have not even applied for Israeli citizenship, and they kept their Syrian citizenship. Now, after the massacres of the Julani regime against the Druze, the number of the people who want now to enlist in the Israeli occupation forces and even receive Israeli citizenship has increased 600%. So these massacres led to a 600% increase in enlistment in the Israeli army and record numbers applying for Israeli citizenship. For decades, the Druze of Golan refused integration, holding on their Syrian identity. Now, after the massacres and the collapse of trust in Damascus or the new regime, a new generation of these among the Druze are turning away. They say no longer looking to Damascus, but to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The massacres in Sweden has become a geopolitical turning point, one that Israel calls a transformation born of Julani's brutality. So this is one of the intended or unintended consequences of these massacres against the Druze. And now 600 plus more people want to enlist in the Israeli occupation forces from the Druze community in the Golan Heights and also applying for Israeli citizenship. And as you watched at the beginning of this video, for 14 years, have you seen a Druze person carrying an Israeli flag in Sweden? That never happened. Now, after the massacres, and I'm not justifying it, by the way, you say I condemn that. People in Sweden are carrying Israeli flag because they want for Israel to come and protect them. And I don't want to repeat myself, but my message is very simple. Israel played an instrumental role in installing Julani to power with the confession of Benjamin Netanyahu, including lifting the Caesar Act and the brutal sanctions against the Julani regime or against Syria, which is now led and controlled by the Julani regime. Netanyahu said multiple times, and he took credit for ousting Assad, weakening his regime and ousting him. Netanyahu took credit for lifting sanctions on Syria that he told Trump that he should. Of course, the Arabic countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey, they have lobbied also at the same time in parallel. But Netanyahu also asked Trump to lift the sanctions on Syria, including on the Julani regime. So my message is very simple, my friends, to whoever is listening to me in Sweden, if there is anyone Israel played an instrumental role in bringing Julani to power because they knew that his army is a Takfiri terrorists, and they see the Druze, the Kurds, the Christians, the Alawites, the Shiites, the Yazidis, and the rest as infidels, as apostates. People, they are subhumans in their eyes. It's seriously, it's a special kind of Smotrichism, You know what Smotrich believes about the Palestinians? They're subhumans, right? The people like Smotrich, people like Netanyahu, people like Ben Gvir, they see the Palestinians as subhumans. So these people in Syria who are in charge of the country now because of the militias, their militias believe in the same way that Smotrich and Netanyahu and Ben Gvir think about the Palestinians, but in Syria, they see these religious and ethnic minorities in Syria as subhumans, that they are permissible to kill them. And they feel very proud posting their own videos killing the minorities in Syria, right? I would like also to warn our friends and family and our countrymen in Sweden that this person who is Ayub Kara has been the former Minister of Communication, by the way, of Israel. He is in The Hague. He says, after we obtained approval to file an international lawsuit against the terrorist Al-Julani in the Hague court, we submitted the lawsuit in the Netherlands just minutes ago, and we hope that the court will begin its sessions in this case as soon as possible so that Sweden can return to normal life.
أنا سعيد جدا إني خرجت من المحكمة الجنائية الدولية في هولندا بعد ما قدمنا دعوة شخصية ضد الجولاني على الإبادة الجماعية اللي عملها في السويدة وعلى تهجير 34 قرية في المقرن الشمالي والغربي، وطبعا موضوع المعبر اللي هو جايب لكارثة إنسانية في الجوع وفي أمور أخرى. لذلك هاي المحكمة على الطريق ضد هذا الإرهابي بدعم المؤسسة الشباب الدروز هون، الاتحاد الدرزي الأوروبي العالمي. وأنا بطلب من بدانيل اللي موجود جنبي من هاي المؤسسة إنه يبارك على هذه الخطوة.
So what is happening is, for the people to understand, there are very capable powers like Israel and the US. They create a problem and then they present a solution. So they created a problem in Syria for the ethnic and religious minorities, and now they're presenting them the solution. They're playing both sides. They are negotiating with Julani for a security agreement and then normalizing relations. And at the same time, they're using the massacres of the Julani regime against the Druze in order to open a corridor between the Golan Heights and the Sweda. They don't really care about the well-being of the Druze. Had they been really caring about the people, they wouldn't have allowed somebody like Julani to come to power to begin with, and they would have removed him from power like this if they wanted to. They have dropped 85 tons of explosives on Hassan Nasrallah to assassinate him. And I'm not comparing between Nasrallah and Julani. There is a huge difference between them, right? In terms of everything, ideology, morality, and the cause and the discipline and everything. But if Israel wants to eliminate someone, they would do it very easily. They have dropped 85 tons of explosives to kill one person. And Julani is rolling around every day in Syria, and they know where he's wearing his underwear, basically, right? And they know the color of his underwear. So if they want, they can, of course, knock out Julani, but his presence is very helpful. He's helpful by creating a one-color system, discriminatory system against the minorities, and now Israel comes and capitalizes on it. And one of the cases that Israel capitalizes is the Sweda, which is geographically, it's approximately it's close to the Golan Heights. So they want to open a corridor between the Golan to Sweda, and then from Sweda to the eastern shore of the Euphrates. So for geopolitical reasons, they care about the Druze now, or use their suffering for their own geopolitical purposes. Israel doesn't show the same interest in the Alawites of Syria. The Alawites in the coast, they are also targeted and killed, but Israel doesn't show that because they are not geographically close to the coast, and the Alawites, up until this moment, collectively, have not yet been organized politically and militarily, and they have not accepted under such structural decision to get support from Israel. I just want to mention one information. This is not analysis. This was a few weeks ago. I received a phone call from a contact. And I know this contact for a long time because he's active on Facebook, and I was active on Facebook. He's Syrian, from the Syrian Alawite community. And he was in Berlin, and he called me and he said he wanted to meet me. But a few days earlier, I have read his name on social media being part of one of these political gatherings, which is mostly Syrian Alawites. And I don't want to be part of any political gathering that is only like Alawites or only Christians or only Jews. I have not struggled in the past 14 years for facilitating the Balkanization of Syria, basically. If you guys see that Balkanization of Syria is the best outcome for the Syrian war and or to protect your families there, you do you. I'm not going to come and stand against you, but I'm not going to join forces with you. And I have learned from my sources that this Ayub Qara that you saw him now in front of the Hague, he's the same guy sponsoring this other gathering for the Alawites, and he's preparing the ground for a political formation for this region so that they would also in the future have friendly relationship with Israel. I mean, first of all, I would never be part of a gathering that is one-colored like this. And secondly, I would never, ever be part of a political gathering that is sponsored by Zionist Israel. They have created these conditions in Syria, or helped the creation of these conditions in Syria. How, like, come on, like this, I don't know what else to tell these people. They know very well that Israel has a hand in this. And now you being part of a political gathering that is sponsored by former Israeli minister who is definitely working for the Mossad. Doesn't make any sense to me. I just want to say some people mention names in the live chat for people that I have to host. I owe great respect for many, many people, guys, that I hosted, and the names that you already mentioned in the comments below in the live chat, that you want them on my show. There are a few things that I want to mention to you, one of which is there are people who are really brilliant, and I owe big respect for them for what they do. But them coming to my show don't add anything new, right? Like whatever they're going to say, I'm here already covering that. So I don't feel like they're bringing value, right? So I host them 1 or 2 times, sometimes only 1 time, and I feel like nothing they say I couldn't say, right? And there are also other people, in my opinion, they are sensationalists. Also, their names are being mentioned several times in the live chat. They're sensationalists, and they are wishful thinkers, and they reject to accept the fact that everything happened after October 7 in the region has been a big blow to the Axis, which believed in a region that free of American hegemony. I don't believe that this Axis has emerged victorious. I believe every event came after October 7 was a defeat for this Axis. And I believe that if you don't recognize and accept the defeat, then you will not get ready for a better strategy. So I don't I don't like the people who are sensationalists. I don't like the people who are wishful thinkers. And I don't like people also who are spreading certain narratives that are completely fabricated and untrue. And one of the people mentioned in the chat who literally said that Assad has been kidnapped by Russia when the battles were still ongoing in Aleppo and Assad flew to Moscow to meet with Putin. Some people claim that he was kidnapped in Moscow and they forced him to stay and he never came back. That's an utter it's an utter bollocks. And I don't like that, and I don't like that people claim that they have special sources in the presidential palace who told them. I don't like this style of people, I know better because I have sources. I don't like it. And I can assure you that I also had sources, and I know lots of things about the last days, which I'm not able to share because I don't feel safe sharing this information from where I live. But the one factual information I can share with you is that Assad was not kidnapped by Russia, and he returned from in November back to Damascus, and he met with people. He met people in meetings, and then he left. That's it. He returned. So I have written a very long analysis, and I have made over 1 hour stream explaining the strategic catastrophe behind Russia's new policy in Syria, and I have criticized harshly the foreign policy of Russia towards Syria, the new foreign policy. But I'm not going to go into the abyss and tell the people the Russians betrayed, they captured President Assad, and they didn't let him go back to Syria. That never happened. So if people want to make up stories, I truly cannot have them on my show. That's the final thing I want to say. I want to share with you a few more things, my friends, happening in Syria. And the first thing is that while people like myself, we are unable to go to Syria because the Al-Julani regime would detain us in the airport or on the border crossings and send us to a dungeon and kill us. This is an Israeli TikToker, basically, touring the streets of Damascus, moving openly through the Syrian capital.
אני חייב להראות לכם איך נראה סוריה ב-2025. אני עוד רגע אהפוך את המצלמה ותראו.
So, as you may know, guys, even before the regime change, I had Jewish friends in Syria, in Damascus. And I have helped one of my Jewish friends in opening back here one of the cemeteries, I believe it's called, Maqbara. Yeah, cemetery, one of the cemeteries of the Jews, and it's also a synagogue in Damascus. And he reopened them to pray and cleaned it on his own expense, but I helped him with that process. So I'm a proponent and a supporter of whoever was Syrian and Jewish and left Syria to the United States. He should be able to come and visit his properties. And if he wants to stay, ahlan wa sahlan, no problem. We are all Syrians. But my problem is with the Zionist Jews, those who believe in the Israeli domination over the region, and those who believe that Israel should extend its borders into Syria, those who believe that Syria is just a fictional state, that Israel has to extend its borders and create a greater Israel project. I have a problem with Zionist Jews who agree with Netanyahu, Smotrich, and Ben Gvir to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians and commit a genocide against them. I have a problem with Julani receiving these people in Damascus. Meanwhile, he keeps people like myself and others outside the country and terrorize us with his thugs, right? I have a problem with that. And please understand that people like Smotrich are not just people on the sideline. They are influential in, and they express the true and real policy of the hardcore Zionists in Israel. Like, for example, when Smotrich said fighting won't end until hundreds of thousands of Gazans leave and Syria partitioned, this is not some wishful thinking. This is a strategy. This is a strategy by Israel. And they have been implementing it in Syria for decades, the Balkanization of Syria. And I have asked this question the other day on X because our friend William Van Wagenen, he shared this article. He said the Syrian cause is the Palestinian cause. This was by our friend William, who was our guest a few days ago on Syriana Analysis. And I said, everyone with two functioning brain cells understood this equation, except, of course, people like Chomsky, Finkelstein, Owen Jones, and the rest of the intellectuals. I should put between brackets, but anyways, the rest of the intellectuals who insisted on false separation while parroting Zionist talking points about the former Syrian army and its allies. I don't want to say much more about Finkelstein and Chomsky and Jones, but what they have done is a great damage for the Palestine cause. And I truly don't believe that Chomsky and Jones and Finkelstein and what was the name of this other Greek minister, former Greek minister of finance, Yanis Varoufakis. What the fuck, bro? What the fuck? Yeah, of course Owen Jones never mentioned Syria now because it's too embarrassing for him to mention Syria, that he enabled this. Mahdi Hassan, bravo. Mahdi Hassan, Varoufakis. It's a fuckis policy. Sorry. The Varoufakis, he made a big opinion article basically trying to tell the people that the enemy of the empire, because Syria was the enemy of the empire, right, doesn't necessarily mean that the enemy of the empire is the friend of the anti-imperialists. So it's just mental gymnastics that they have legitimized this CIA-led regime change war in Syria. And now these useful idiots, as our friends say, they never show up and they never speak about Syria. Why is that? Yanis Varoufakis basically argued that the Assad regime has to be crumbled because the enemy of the empire doesn't necessarily mean this regime of the Assad regime is a friend of the anti-imperialist because he believes he's an anti-imperialist. These people are all Orientalists. They don't see the region except in its current borders after Sykes and Picot. They don't see that this geography, it's all fake artificial borders, that whatever happens in Syria reflects on Palestine and whatever happens in Syria reflects on Lebanon. There is a famous quote in Arabic. It says, if Syria sneezes, Lebanon gets cold. And if Syria sneezes, Palestine also gets cold. So those are all interconnected. It's a merged region, right? Those borders are just sliced by the imperialists. But these Orientalist Varoufakises, they have a fucked up view of the world, which, thanks to their idiocy, or I don't know, maybe it's beyond idiocy. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's a deliberate what they're doing. I don't know. They have destroyed also any tangible chance for the Palestinians to have a statehood. My friends, I just want to continue quickly about what's going on in Syria, because I want you to know that although I'm not covering the local issues in Syria consistently, but it is still the same where we left the last time, like Syrian Alawite young woman missing in Latakia. contact has been lost with Maria Wasim Humeira, 22 years old, since the afternoon of October 22nd, while she was on her way to a gym in Latakia city. Since that time, her mobile phone has been switched off and there is no information about her whereabouts and conditions. And if you want to know how things happen in Syria and how people could disappear, this is a good video for you to see. This is a CCTV footage, shows kidnapping in Latakia. This CCTV footage captured an armed group wearing the uniforms of the general security militias abducting Mr. Saleh Aslan, 70 years old, in front of his home in the Al-Awqaf neighborhood in Latakia. Mr. Salah Aslan is originally from the city of Qardaha and is a member of the Alawite community. And in the video, you will also see his son trying to defend his father, but they threaten him with gun. See, this white person is the son. He tried to defend his father, but they threatened him with a gun. It's just a thuggery, you know. It's a militia. It's worse than a jungle. It's just people disappear like this. At least they didn't kill the son. I'm happy for that, and I hope that the father would be released soon. And I don't know what are the motives, but this is how people disappear in Syria. And if you want to know more about the nature of this regime, you need to look into its militants, right? Those militants are in charge of everything is ongoing on the ground, and listen to them when they speak. This is in Latakia, and the coastal city. See, this is the Mediterranean, by the way, and they're walking in one of the villages, and listen to what they say. They say, "Tell me, Abu Amsha, where are we now?" By God's grace, we are in Latakia. In spite of that despicable lot, they mean the Alawites. This land will be Syrian Sunni forever. They say, how about we liberate the sea from fish remnants? Well, good luck with this mentality to build a state. It will blow up in the face. It will blow up in the face of these jihadists. They will just increase pressure every time, like ridiculous things that they do like this. Look at this video. This is just to show you the absurdity of the issue in Syria. So they stopped this man in the street, and look what they ask him. Please follow the subtitles.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف حالك يا أخي؟ الحمد لله. هل زوجتك؟ إيه إن شاء الله. بالله عليك. أول شيء نقابها، تعمل نقابها، تحاول تحسن نقابها. لما تمشي ما ترفع العباية، الرسمة، ما العباية. So first of all, ask her to change the fabric of her veil. She's wearing a black veil. I don't know why. What is she going to wear? And second, tell her not to hold her grown up. أول شيء نقابها، تعمل نقابها، تحاول تحسن نقابها. لما تمشي ما ترفع العباية، الرسمة، ما العباية. يا أخي هذه زوجتك صمها يا أخي. الله يبارك لك. الله يبارك.
ارفع راسك فوق، أنت سوري حر. شو مسخرة حبيبي. Unfortunately, this wave of sectarian violence has gone out of control, and as you see, this has killed many Alawites in only 3 days, 8 Alawites in 3 days in Syria, and this has been published 3 days ago. Hom's governorate in central Syria is witnessing a wave of sectarian violence, both from attacks by unknown gunmen targeting members of the Alawite religious minority and from the torture and killing of Alawites in Syrian government prisons. At least 8 have been killed in the governorate over the past 3 days, including 7 on sectarian grounds, and 2 women included in the number. Some 359 people have been killed in Homs since the beginning of the year. as a result of that chaos that has plagued the city since the former ISIS commander Abu Muhammad al-Julani took power. You know what saddens me? Today I watched a video of a woman making a video about Sweden, about the Druze. Unfortunately, I'm just being very, very honest with you, my friends. Very, very honest. Many Syrians, they were very passive in the past 14 years, and they haven't spoken anything about the country when it was targeted as a whole. Now that their particular communities are targeted, all of a sudden they care and they want to make videos and they want to speak up and they want the people to care. We were one people before everything happened. And when I was active, you called me a Shabir, you called me a government thug, you demonized me, you tried to call me all sorts of names because of my activism, which was for the entirety of Syria, that we are all citizens of that country. And that if the regime change is materialized and these radical Salafists take over, then this is going to be the outcome. This is what I told you for 14 years. It's happening, right? But now that already shit hit the fan and everything is too late, now people want to be active. Habibi, it's too late. L'asaf. So, my friends, I sometimes imagine the world, this world that we live in, as one big geopolitical lab experiment, right? A place where men in suits, far from any front line, play with the lives the way a child plays with matches. Syria was one of those experiments. And as with all experiments designed by foreign policy geniuses, it ended exactly as you would expect, in fire, ruin, and endless press releases about democracy. In the past decade, Western governments and their enthusiastic apprentices, let's say, the allies in the Middle East, tried to convince the Syrian people to take up arms against their own national army. I mean, it sounded heroic on paper, a revolution for freedom, dignity, and Netflix subscriptions, probably. Only one small problem. Many Syrians didn't want to die in someone else's ideological war for democracy. They wanted economic prosperity, job opportunities, and a life. When that slogan failed to ignite, the powers behind this war found a better formula. Don't convince people, just import zealots, these takfiris. So they opened the floodgates for every radical, disillusioned, and semi-brainwashed takfiri who could spell jihad in broken Arabic. Thousands, in some estimates, tens of thousands of foreign takfiris poured in from all over the world, the West included. They didn't just join ISIS. Many went to also the al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda's local branch, which, irony of ironies, now rules Syria with the same cruelty once condemned by the very governments that enabled it. It's almost poetic, right? For years before the regime change fantasy took hold, Damascus warned the world. Damascus told the world, you are cultivating a monster. Damascus told the world, let's fight these extremists together. No, replied the West, we prefer our extremists export only. They wouldn't even take their own citizens back. French, British, German, Kazakh, Belgian, Swedish, you name it. Everyone wanted to outsource their takfiri jihadists. It was a perfect system. Dump the radicals in Syria, watch the chaos from afar, and then give yourself awards for humanitarian concern. Fast forward a decade, the regime is gone. Meanwhile, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, the former al-Qaeda man, now rules Syria, complete with PR makeovers and televised interviews that make him look like a startup founder pitching moderate Islam incorporation. And guess what? Some Western governments are suddenly uncomfortable. Their project worked too well. the radicals they helped unleash may now turn against their own proxy Julani, who is, how shall I put this, suddenly very cooperative with Western and regional powers. So now the same countries that once refused to take their citizens back are politely suggesting Julani to do it for them. Deport the French once, please. The Brits next. The Germans maybe next quarter. It's like a recycling program, right? Like return your jihadists for a cleaner and greener Idlib. Of course, the Takfiris aren't taking it well. Julani's attempt to capture and send back the French Legion of Idlib sparked open fighting. Other factions joined in, not out of solidarity, but out of fear that they will be next on the export list. So the multi-ethnic jihadist utopia is now turning on itself. And as I watch this grotesque theater unfold, I can't help but think this was all avoidable. If only the friends of Syria had thought about the actual Syrians. Instead, they thought about pipelines, geopolitical chessboards, and the tantalizing idea of turning a defiant state into playground for foreign corporations. Destroy the country, rebuild it with Western and Gulf money, and call it a success story. This is a neo-colonialism. Less about troops, more about contracts, right? That's the genius of modern empire. You don't need to occupy a country anymore. You just break it economically and then offer loans, consultants, and fast food chains to help it recover. It's cheaper, cleaner, and easier to sell to voters anyways. But for those of us who live with the consequences, there is nothing clean about it. The rubble isn't metaphorical. The pain isn't theoretical. Every destroyed street in Aleppo, every refugee camp in Idlib is a monument to someone's strategic calculation. And so, as I speak from the safe distance of time but not memory, I find myself really oscillating between rage and dark laughter. Because what else can I do, right? Crying is too exhausting. Humor at least gives you oxygen. Yes, Syria has hydrocarbons and a strategic location. Yes, we are the land bridge between empires, but we're also people. And somewhere between the boardrooms of Washington, Ankara, and Brussels, that small detail got lost. What happened in Syria, my friends, was not a revolution that went wrong. It was a foreign policy experiment that went exactly as planned. If there is any lesson left in this chaos, and if there is anyone in other countries who want to take some lessons from the Syrian people, it's a simple one. When the empire says they want to bring you democracy, count your limbs before you thank them. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Syriana Analysis. I'm Kevork Almassian, and I want to thank you very much for watching this stream, whether you joined us on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Ganjing Word. What we are witnessing in Syria today is the final stage of a foreign experiment that began more than a decade ago, an experiment in chaos, regime change, and manufactured revolutions. The same Western and regional powers that armed extremists under the banner of freedom are now watching their creation devour itself. Julani, once a proxy, now a president, rules over the ruins of a nation that was never his to begin with. He is persecuting minorities, terrorizing civilians, and in the ultimate irony, turning on the French and European militants who once fought for his cause. And while all this happens, Israel openly thanks him. Foreign influencers wander through Damascus with cameras, and the same Western governments that started this disaster pretend not to see what's unfolding. But Syria's story is not over, because beneath the rubble and repression lies the truth that no occupation or proxy regime can erase. Syrian people will endure long after their so-called liberators are gone. If you found this analysis informative, please take a moment to like this stream, thumbs up, share it with your friends, and consider supporting my independent work on Patreon. The link is scrolling on the screen, or you could simply scan the QR code on the screen. And if you don't like to use Patreon, there are different other means in the description below. Tomorrow, we are going to do our weekly show with our dear friend Tarek Jibril Amar at 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. Please stay tuned for that. There are lots of important things to unpack for tomorrow. So until next time, stay informed, my friends, stay rational, and see the world as it is, not as they tell you it is. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.